Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Thomas Christ, and we're here with a very special broadcast tonight. We have a great friend of mine and someone who used to play live guitar with me, went to grade school and high school with me. Jeremiah Mangosh is with us, and we're going to be talking with him in just a minute. But first, I have a video of our very first show, and hey, I see Gary Hubbs is here. How you doing, Gary? Glad to see you here. So I'm going to try to attempt to play this video, which is from our very first show. So let's see if we can do this. right. So I have to change the setting here. Without further ado, let's bring him in. The man, the myth, the legend, Jeremiah Mangosh. How are you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm good. Um, it's it's just weird seeing something from that long ago.
I know. I was like, man, I was like a baby. People are saying I found the fountain of youth. I was like, um, I was like 18 or 19 when we did that show.
Yeah, I was like it was a month before my 20th birthday, I think,
Okay.
because I was a sophomore in college.
Yeah, I would have been too.
In fact, that was my roommate John Heil on the sound. Um,
Yeah, yeah, he did. He manned the Boss BR8, which is sitting right over there. He had to put that in, and then we had like crazy um, diagrams for him to like set all the levels for everything.
but that wasn't the first attempt at a show.
It wasn't.
We were on our way. What was it?
It wasn't that.
October.
What that was the third show, I thought, because that was the first show, and then we did a second show 2 weeks later on the 14th, which was Valentine's Day, and then I think we did a third show after that, and that's when you unfortunately got into an accident on the way there.
No, the car wreck was actually in 2001. It was October. We were on our way there, and we were like half a mile from it. Went through a light that went from yellow to red, and some asshole had his foot on the gas, T-boned us, had to go to the hospital, totaled my car.
Well, yeah, I
Um,
remember because I was right behind you.
and it actually broke my guitar too. My guitar was in the trunk, and it shattered the neck, which is why I'm playing your guitar in this one, because I don't know if you had already had that guitar or if you had purchased it in the meantime.
Okay. Yeah, no, no, I'm sure I had that because I used that to record the album.
Oh, okay. And that's actually another story. The guitar, I had the guitar the night before the show, and somehow, without asking permission, I plastered the entire guitar with stickers or not stickers, just prints from a Salvador Dali book that I had, like with putty, and then covered the whole thing with tape. It's right here. I
You
do
still
not.
got it.
Yeah, well, I actually had somebody from work, an older guy who used to be an electrician, fixed it for me. Um, I couldn't even find the back, so he made like a wooden back for it and everything. And it didn't work for years, uh, but
Yeah, because
it's
you said you got somebody to fix it then.
yeah. This older guy from work used to be an electrician. I paid him for the switch. I think it was like $15, and I gave him an old cell phone because he liked to take things apart and
Mhm.
just kind of put them back together, or take the wires from it and make his own projects. So
Cool.
um, yeah.
Well, let's get into this a little bit. So the first thing I want to ask you about, how did music factor, if at all, in your upbringing? And was music big in your house?
Not really. It was peripheral. I had grandfathers on each side that played. One played an accordion because our family's Polish and Czech,
Mhm.
and he would take out an accordion and dance around at like picnics and stuff. And the other one like would play like a violin. He had a mouth harp. But like my parents were both just like it was like oldies on my dad's side, top 40 on my mom's side, and
Mhm.
then later Christian music on my mom's side.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. I knew about that.
yeah. I mean, some of that I still like. Amy Grant, I still get like a nostalgic kick from that. But no, I didn't get into music until I was about 11. I just started watching MTV, and there's Nirvana, there's the Chili Peppers, there's Metallica. Metallica was like the big one that made me want to pick up a guitar.
Yeah. Well, because I had neighbors that they were really into like Metallica and Guns N' Roses, so I kind of got into that from them. But before that, I was into like rap music for a little while. But
Yeah, actually, I should bring up real quick. Even though most of my family wasn't into music, I forgot my cousin Jason. I'd go over to his house. He had a guitar. He was the one who got me into Metallica, but he's the first person that played me. He played me Jimi Hendrix. He played me Queen. He played me Anthrax. He played me Led Zeppelin. Like all this shit that I would like. It would have taken years and years for me to hear. He was the spark plug that, and he had the guitar was cool. Like it was a. So I have to mention him.
yeah, well, that's cool. So I'm gonna welcome some people. We have Russ in the chat. Jade Star is also here. Jade says, "Eek, Amy Grant." He said,
uh,
I'd rather a trip to the proctologist.
I seen her when I was 10 years old. That she played in Morgantown at the stadium where their sports teams played. So I forgot about that too. This
Uh-huh.
is there's going to be a whole bunch of shit I hadn't thought about in years. It's going to come up.
Yeah. Well, that's super cool. So you actually saw Metallica then?
No. I saw Amy Grant.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you saw. Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of
I
a
still
difference
haven't
between
seen
you.
Metallica. Yeah, I still haven't seen Metallica. I've seen three of the big four, but I
Mhm.
have not seen Metallica because they cost like three times as much as everybody else.
Oh yeah. It's super expensive. Anyway, so moving right along. What originally got you into music and playing guitar? I actually don't know the answer to this question, so I'm kind of curious to hear.
Well, I said Metallica earlier, but like their stuff is way too intimidating. I guess it was, although the first riff I ever learned on guitar was Enter Sandman. But like a lot of that stuff was just beyond what I could imagine playing. So it was Nirvana because
Mhm.
it wasn't just because the stuff was easier to play, but it was well Nirvana and I remember I got Dookie by Green Day when I was like 12 years old, and I saw the Longview video, and here's these guys. They're just completely ugly motherfuckers, and they're just hanging out at their mom's house. The whole thing's kind of grainy, and like they were, they didn't look like rock stars. So all of a sudden, you're like, that felt encouraging. Like these people
Uh,
aren't 100 feet above me. Like,
yeah.
um, and but yeah, I mean, Nirvana was like the first band that I think I actively tried to learn. Nirvana and Green Day were the first bands I actually tried to learn their stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Because I mean, Nirvana for me, I was into all that rap music. I was into like Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer and even Crisscross. And then somebody, I think maybe got me the In Utero album for my birthday. I think it was like maybe when I turned 11 or so, and never looked back. I mean, like that was the start of it there for
Yeah,
me.
well, we did a cover of Heart Shaped Box.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, actually, I performed it on this channel not that long ago.
oh, did you? I've seen
Yeah.
a lot of your videos, and I missed that one, but I guess you did have a covers only show.
Yeah. And I had to do that one because I don't have that many covers.
Yeah. But there was a certain song on In Utero, like, because my ears, like, it was still taking a while for me to get used to things. And In Utero really was one of those albums that pushed my ears because it was rawer than I'd heard before. And it was Scentless Apprentice that came
Oh,
on,
great one.
and he's just fucking screaming, and it's just this really simple, like kind of bludgeoning guitar riff, and like the mics are distorting. I mean, that's Steve Albini, who
Yeah.
I end up really liking later on.
Well, yeah, because you were a fan of Big Black.
Yeah, yeah, Big Black. We were actually on a field trip for school, and that was back when it was really hard to get CDs, and it was, I that was a few years before I got a computer or anything. So anytime I left like the house and went to Pittsburgh or whatever, it's like you wanted to come back with something. I got Songs About Fucking by Big Black, and that I actually listened to that in a car like less than a week ago, and it still rips.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was just watching not too long ago. There was a pretty extended interview that was released. I want to say it was back in the fall, maybe, or no, probably back in the spring. That was I don't know who the guy was, but it was with Steve Albini, and he was talking about the whole history of the production of In Utero, how he got to working with Nirvana. It was very, very interesting.
Yeah, I've watched a couple of his production videos. I don't know if I like. Uh, it's actually cool that he's willing to talk about it, because he's kind of cantankerous.
Oh
He's
yeah.
kind of like he doesn't put up with shit, but he's still willing to talk about In Utero, and um,
Well, it was so cool. Like he refused to take royalties from In Utero because he said it wasn't. He didn't write the songs. He just he recorded them. So he
yeah,
didn't feel like he was. 'Cause most producers would definitely want royalties.
yeah, that's something he didn't. A lot of times he doesn't consider himself a producer as such. He's like, a producer would be someone like Brian Eno, who actually has input into the music. He's like, all I try to do is capture the music as honestly as I can. So he prefers to consider himself an engineer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, but he doesn't even believe in he won't influence how the band sounds. Like he might talk about performance a little bit, but that's as far as he'll go. He's not going to go in and I'm going to move this chorus over here, and I'm going to go into Pro Tools, and I'm going to replace all the drums out of this section, and
Yeah.
which is common practice these days. He doesn't do it.
Right. Now, I mean, I've seen a tour of his studio. He has those tools, like, so if you do want to use them, they're there, but
Mm-hmm.
he just he's really old school. It's all I think it's all condenser microphones, like ribbon microphones. I forget what he said. Um shit, I lost my train of thought, but
Well, he doesn't use, as far as I know, he doesn't use digital at all. He's all analog. Records the analog tape.
yeah, but like I said, he has those things available, but he doesn't
Yeah.
force any. Oh, I remember what I wanted to say. The only band I can think of that he actually turned down was Depeche Mode, and it wasn't because he hated the band. It was just he felt he couldn't do a good job representing that type of music.
Yeah. But Steve Albini is definitely an interesting producer. I don't know what he would do with someone like me. I've often wondered that, because I can actually Steve Albini, he doesn't charge a lot, so theoretically, I could go be recorded by him potentially, but I don't know what he would do with someone like me who does everything, different parts at different overdubs and everything, because he likes a band just to kind of go into a room and just play, and that's the recording.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true, but he also says it's up to the band. Like, I remember Veruca Salt recorded with him, and they're like, we did vocal overdubs, we did guitar overdubs. He's not against it. It's just he has a certain way he prefers to work, but he leaves it entirely up to the band. And he says, I just try to do my best to execute their wishes, which there's a certain integrity in that.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So we were talking about guitars, and something that Steve Albini would probably be a fan of is you've used some different things unusual things like ray guns and shavers to play the electric guitar. So my question is, can you tell me about the unusual implements you've used to play the guitar with, and um, where you got the idea to use them, and how successful or unsuccessful a lot of these things were?
The weird thing is, I'm having. I mean, I guess it was Tom Morello. I think, insofar as using the guitar in a like a non-traditional manner. I mean, there are tons of people that came before him, but like, where you going? You're not going to hear, King Crimson on the radio. Like, you're not going to hear Keith Rowe on the radio. So here's a guy who was able to, work with hip hop and dance music, and the funny thing is, I've seen his pedal board. He's got like 5 things on it. It's not complicated,
Yeah.
but so he's probably where I got some of that. But I used to, the bus would drop me off, and there was a Big Lots near where the bus would stop. So I'd go in and just buy shit. Like, so that's where I got the ray gun. I got like personal fans. I got one of those. It it was supposed to be different sounds to soothe, like for sleeping or your baby, and it was a really cheap, like $5 one. It sounded like shit.
Uh-huh.
Um, I got and then some stuff was at home, like nail files, tin cans over pickups, like some of that shit. Like, I read Guitar World, so bands would mention stuff they would do in the studio, and I would just kind of like keep accumulating things. Um, but there was something and I've done it a few times where it's like I didn't have drums, I didn't have a drum machine, so I have to make the guitar take the place of the drums somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember that demo I played you the one time, and like you were convinced that it was a real drum set.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that. Well,
And
there's some pretty, if you have the right effects, there's some pretty crazy stuff you can do with. I mean, you can do almost anything with a guitar. There's
yeah,
actually, I don't know, like, do you have like an iPad or an iPhone these days?
I actually don't have either of those things. I have an Android tablet. Actually, I got a new toy that just came in
Oh,
yesterday, and this is the
oh wow.
first MIDI controller I've ever
Oh,
had.
what
So
is that? An Arturia?
yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. Is that BeatStep Pro?
this is a Mini Lab.
Oh, the Mini Lab. Okay.
I was just looking online. What's a good beginner's MIDI interface, and this is the one that came up the most often. So
That's
I got it for $80.
Yeah, that's a hell of a beginner's interface. Actually, that's really good stuff.
Yeah, it's really solid too. Like, it doesn't feel like plastic. It feels like the whole thing is almost all metals, um, except for the keys and everything. But the body, like, it feels good.
So Gary's asking in the chat, maybe because you're sometimes a little well versed in these things than I am. What song did Eddie Van Halen use a drill?
Oh shit. I don't know. Maybe it'll come to me. But I'm not. I actually don't know. I like Van Halen, but I've really only heard maybe about. I've heard all the albums once, but I've only heard the only ones I've heard like multiple times were the very first one, 1984, and the one with Mean Streets on it, and Unchained. So I don't know. I remember, didn't Jackal use a chainsaw in one of
Oh
their
yeah,
songs?
yeah. Well, I think they used it at least in the video, but maybe they did use it in a song. That rings a bell.
Yeah. Oh, that was actually one of the ones I forgot about, and one of my favorites is electric toothbrush.
Oh yeah.
Uh, you take you take the head off of it, and you just have the motor. You can switch it on, and what you can do, you can change the speed with one of your fingers, and you uh, it works really well with delay, where you can get kind of a high pitched whine, and then you can change the speed with
Um,
uh, just by holding your finger on the motor, and you kind of you can almost do a vehicle effect because you can take the toothbrush from way out here and like zoom it by the pickups.
oh, that's cool.
So so
Almost,
something's
almost like
coming and going.
an airplane or something fly by.
Right, like it's almost like a Doppler effect, or so, which
Mm.
of course, I mean that's what Running with the Devil opens with. That wasn't. I don't think I'd even heard that album, the first Van Halen album when I did that. But yeah, there's a lot of sounds. Anything with a motor, your pickups, your guitar pickups will detect it, and you can use that.
I'll have to keep that in mind, actually. So on the subject of guitars, I had a question I was going to ask you about effects, but I also was going to ask you. I remember you used a variety of different guitar setups in our live shows, from individual stomp boxes to multi effects pedals and various combinations of both. Can you tell us which setups you thought were the most successful, and tell us about all of the different effects that you use? So I guess in that you can also say what your favorites are.
Well, I'll tell you what. It was a Digitex GNX. I bought it for $300, like right before we started doing live shows. I think the summer of 2001, I worked at Sony, and I bought that thing, and I used it. I think every show we ever played. In fact, I think for that first show, I don't even know if I had any other effects. But what was great about it was you had three banks for each song, and a bypass. So I had a sound for the verse, a sound for the chorus, and a sound for the bridge, and I could switch them. It wasn't perfect. There was like a slight delay, but all the and like the thing is, I don't think. Well, things have gotten a lot better. I shouldn't say they can't do it, because they certainly can now. If you obviously stuff with axe effects and stuff, and Kempers, people don't even need amps anymore. But at the time, it was like, the drives aren't great. So, um, like, I did eventually pick up a few things. I got a Fuzz Factory, a Z-Vexed Fuzz Factory.
Yeah, I
It's
remember
still,
that. I definitely remember that one.
that's still, I think that still might be my favorite effect of all time. You could make it sound normal and great, but you turn one of the knobs like a few degrees, and you make animal squeals, or you make theremin noises, or it does sub octaves, or it does upper octaves. And you actually, I hated it at first, but once you actually study it, like once you actually have some idea of what you're doing with it, like there's a million possibilities. So that's a great pedal. I spent way too much for it at the time. Like,
Yeah, those are expensive. I've looked
I
into some of those.
I think you can get them for about 150 now. I spent something like $300 for it, which was totally irresponsible at the time. On the other hand, the other effects I had at the time, I had a Dan Electro, their food line, a pepperoni phaser. You'd think these things would break. I've had this sucker for 20 years. I paid $30 for it new. Still works, still sounds good. I had a Boss digital delay. Of course, Boss lasts forever because it's all metal. Um,
Speaking of
those
Boss, I have right at my feet. I have my vocals, my voice for this is actually running through Boss ME70, which is kind of like your Digitech, but it's a Boss version. And so I could do this, 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 this.
I seen that on your studio tour. And in fact, uh, I I almost ordered a Boss before I saw the Digitech. The only thing that made me want the Digitech more was you could take two amps and blend them together, and you could get way more sounds. There's a song we did. You might have done. I don't know if you've done it live since you started doing this. It was
Huh?
nails, nails,
Oh,
hammer them in.
Ministry of Misery.
Ministry of Misery. I did one where it was like a crunch sound blended with just a direct clean sound, and somehow, however they interacted, it was the most brutal distortion I'd ever heard.
Hmm.
I like and So if you blended things, you could get a lot of variety, even though I would still use the effects. Like there's still some interesting effects on that thing, but I wouldn't use the drives. I'm fine with digital effects, but like all my gain is analog now.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because you just can't. There's something about an analog overdrive and distortion that, like tubes and stuff, you just can't really match. And transistors, you just can't really match. You can get real close, but you just can't quite match it with digital.
Yeah, I mean, if you have enough money, you can get close enough. Like
Oh yeah.
they just showed. I just seen something with Billy Corgan switch to all digital
Hmm.
because Line Six sent him something where he's just like, this is close enough. I can get every sound. And I mean, this is the dude who probably owned what 100 pedals, like
Yeah.
every pedal you can think of that was cool. And he's gone all digital, I think, except for his lead sound, because the lead sound is so blown out, like that. He said you still can't replicate that, but everything else is digital now. So that's an illustration of how far we come. That like somebody who's that much of a connoisseur, that's their rig now.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of the musicians in studio now are using like that Kemper profiling amp,
Right.
which I think also gets closed. And there's some crazy thing where you have like all these different effects. It's like a multi effects thing, but it's really, really, really high quality. And the name is escaping me right now, but I think it has like LCD or displays where you can see everything, and like some master unit that it all goes into. It's pretty sophisticated, high end stuff.
I did eventually buy another multi effects that I really like. It's a Zoom G5, which actually has a tube in it, but it's really easy. I think you can have up to, it's either 8 or 9 like effects at a time, and the way they're set up is each one has 3 knobs. It's just like having a row of stomp boxes. So not only does it sound even better than the Digitech does, it's way easier to edit and it's way easier to set up. And unlike the Digitech, which you had to pick like different, like you had a modulation slot, you had a reverb slot, you had a delay slot. If you want 6 reverbs, if you want 6 tremolos in a row, if you just want to make the most god awful racket, like you can set it up to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. When I did my studio tour, I mentioned with this Boss ME70, the one thing, and it's because you can't lay like there's a distortion section, there's a modulation section, there's a delay section, so you can't really layer up stuff. You can only use one of each type, so that does limit you a little bit, and you can't really get the completely far out crazy effects with it, but you can get some decent effects still.
Yeah,
Um,
you get Boss has always been like reliable meat and potatoes kind of stuff. I mean,
yeah,
they
absolutely.
do they do have crazy shit though. Like I have a Behringer copy of the bass synth that they made,
Oh, cool.
and you can get amazing like sounds out of that. It's just replicating them that's difficult because there's no presets.
Well, there's also some, like I was saying, with the iPad, there's some crazy stuff that's coming. It's come out on iPad for in terms of apps. There's an app. There's an app. Why is the name escaping me? Um, Anyway, it's this. There's several apps that can do guitar synth, and it tracks perfectly. And it's an app on an iPad. So you
Oh
literally
wow.
hook an iPad, you hook an interface up to the iPad, and you run a guitar through it, and you get like this perfect digital synth. Like it pretty much eliminates the need for something like a Roland, the MIDI pickups. That's what they used to use for guitar synths back in the day, and those worked pretty good. They had some issues, but this thing is amazing. I don't know how it does it.
Well, maybe later you can send me more information about it because it might be something to look into.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, we talked about the effects. When we used to play live as Thomas Christ, we sometimes had a difficult time getting shows. And so I was wondering if you thought that it was, back when live shows were a thing, because of course now we're dealing with COVID and, live shows are pretty much not
Yeah.
even happening. But did you think it was too difficult for up and coming acts to get gigs, just locally?
Well, I'm going to be kind of straight with you. I didn't. I don't think I did enough to try to get them, and uh, I mean, part of it is I know part of it's going to be like how well you fit with other bands. Like um, we played a show. I think it was in 2004 at a Club Angels, which was this place in, is it Trafford area? I think.
Yeah, I want to say that's where it was, but that was one of the shows. I wrote down all the shows we did. We did 9 in total, but I couldn't remember the date. I know it was in 2005 sometime, and also that Prana Gallery show. I don't know the dates of those.
Yeah, that I want to say Piranha Gallery was either May or June. I know it, or it might have even been April. I know it was just starting to get warm out,
Yeah, I'm
but
thinking it was in the spring too. I agree.
like Club Angels. Just to go back to that for a second. I mean, we go there and it's all like emo bands. We stuck out like a sore thumb. I mean, that doesn't that I have nothing against that as a style. It's just kind of like, man, like you had to figure these bands probably played shows together, like they kind of helped to promote each other.
Hmm.
So I'm sure that's part of it. Like if you have similar bands you can work with, I'm sure you can kind of like feed each other. But I would say I'd say it's probably gotten, if anything, even more difficult to find shows because,
Well,
like,
well, actually, now the great thing is it's really easy because you just go online and
you
perform
just go
online.
online. Right, right.
There's actually like I just do the shows on my own, but there's
Right.
actually like different like people are putting together like full shows online.
Yeah, I've seen some. One of my favorite musicians, Devin Townsend, put together like an hour and a half concert for Halloween.
Hmm.
So I guess the resourceful bands are. I don't want to say take advantage of it because it's not. I can't imagine it's putting that much money in their pocket, but at least they're kind of keeping their name out. Maybe they are gaining fans that way. But I guess the problem is you need. It's I guess. Well, to go back to our first shows, we played that
Hmm.
Club Odyssey, and what was so nice about that was you had a young couple. I think we even met them a few times who
Hmm.
ran that place, and I forgot it must have been at the basement of a. I mean, it must have been a tattoo parlor most of the time, but that was
Yeah.
they were great people. They would let kids play. They didn't charge much, and
Yeah.
I, I I would even like to. I wouldn't mind talking to them again. That like they weren't in it for the profit. They I think they just really wanted to give kids a place in, a small town to play.
Well, I
And
remember one of the owners stuck up for us
I
because
do too.
there was you saw a little bit of that first show there was a little bit of backlash to some of that because there was these were teenagers that were there, so you had the we used some language and so forth, and yeah, somebody complained to one of the owners and they were like, no, they're expressing themselves, that's their right to do.
Right. And I mean, there were kids that were there, like there was a band called Abandoned Youth that I think we played with a few different times,
Right.
and they were punk, like they were. It was like Rancid and the Clash. They had the full uniform, and then there was another band called DSD, and it was just three sisters, I think. It was guitar, keyboard, and drums. Uh, but none of these bands that we played with really had much like in common. It was just fun. It was just meant to be like a place for kids, to play. And I mean, I've gone back there and seen. I think there was a band called Locked On. They were death metal, so it was just really nice. And I don't know what do you do? Like, I'm gonna say something like I used to kind of get in that mindset. It's like, like why can't we play like uh, you want to play more shows, but
Yeah.
if you're not, like the person
They
has to make a profit.
Yeah, well, I mean, most of the venues they expect you to bring in X number of people, and I actually had one of the questions I had for you was a few of the shows we did, we were required to sell a certain number of tickets. You remember that?
Well, I know the Trafford VFW, like right before Christmas 2007.
That was one. Yeah.
What was the other one?
The other one was the very last show we did that because that was through that organization called Afton.
Oh, I didn't.
And that was actually more because at least the nice thing about it wasn't VFW, it was the American Legion.
Okay.
But the thing about that was it was at least with the Legion show, it was like there was a guy who was doing it. It was just one guy. And really like the truth of the matter is not that many people came and he didn't really care that we didn't sell that many tickets. But the Afton one, that was like this whole thing where like it was based on how many tickets you sell determines your positioning in the lineup and whether you get to play another show and all these things and whether you can even play the show or not.
Okay. See, I did not remember that.
Because we actually bought all the tickets.
Did we?
got 20 tickets. We were like, that was the minimum you had to sell. And I think we bought them all. I think we sold like 2 or 3 and we bought them all, the rest of them. So
Okay.
we took a big hit playing that show.
So that's probably why, that must have been why we played last then.
Yeah. And you would think being last would be good, but actually the way that thing was set up, like everybody was gone by that point, or most people were.
Yeah. And it was kind of a shame. Like I remember having a good time. I don't know if you remember any of the other groups. There was one guy, he was just like a folk kind of blues singer, I think, and that guy had a big powerful voice, and everyone, like I even though it wasn't necessarily what we would normally listen to, I remember everyone being kind of captivated by him, and him being like super nervous and like being so happy that he was getting attention. And so you had this really positive vibe, and then like we come on and like the room clears out in like 5 minutes. We were so again it was
and it's a shame because that, and I had at the end of this show I'm gonna play a clip from that show, and that was the best show we did by far. At least I think.
Well, I really simplified everything for that show. Like a lot of whenever you would come out with new material and you'd say this is the set list, I'd learn it, and then I'd try to come up with like different additions to the songs. I tried to come up with like counterpoints or maybe like do something rhythmically to make things interesting. I remember that show was on short notice, and I
Mhm.
was just like, the hell with it. Like I remember I played through a bass amp with a 15-inch speaker, had
Mhm.
one distortion sound, and just that was the loudest amp I ever had, and it was turned on like 1.5. The guy didn't even have to mic it,
Yeah.
and it was just one crushing sound, and it was just like let's go through this. And so yeah, that was probably the show that went the smoothest because just simplified everything.
I think the other thing that helped there too was that the people who owned that or yeah, the people who were kind of like running the venue, I don't know if they were the owners or whatever, but they were into us. They liked what we did.
Oh, that's cool. I don't even
At least
remember talking
I
to
got
them.
the sense that they did because they were like that was the one where they were whoever was doing the sound, he was putting stuff on my vocals and things like delays and things.
Yeah, you gave him. I remember you had like a DJ set up that you were going to play it through, and he ended up being like, "Well, why don't I just take care of it?"
Mhm.
And he ended up doing like you said, a lot of extra work to make sure we sounded good.
Yeah, yeah. So I was very happy with that. By the way, I do want to say hello to Mr. Pete Johns. He's in the house tonight. Glad you could be here, Pete. Um, so anyway, let's go on to what else we want to talk about here. So yeah, so we did play with a lot of different bands, and talk about some of the bands we played with over the years and which ones you like playing with the most.
Um, you're going to have to help me. When
Okay.
we played Ceremony,
Hmm.
what was the headlining band? They were from Cleveland.
Well, it's funny that you should say that because I actually have which one is it? This one. Let me bring this up. It was these are the bands that played. There we go. So it was Reinforced
Reinforced.
with
Okay.
Bone Basket, Passing Time, and Us.
Okay. It must have been Reinforced. I remember seeing them and thinking, they really had their shit together. Like they felt like someone who could have been on like Wax Tracks or something.
Yeah, no, they were really good. Well, Reinforced is a guy named Jim Semenick who runs Distortion Productions, who is, he was really big. I don't know if he's still doing it, but he was really big in the industrial scene here in Pittsburgh. And I know he releases a compilation, I don't know if it's yearly, that raises money for cancer.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah, no, he's cool. So yeah, so he was Reinforced, and then this Bone Basket, I think they were from maybe Ohio.
Oh okay.
I don't remember where Passing Time was from, and they made their own little thing too here.
I'm gonna be honest. Like a lot of that show was a blur because I
And
was
they didn't even put
super
us on.
nervous.
They didn't even put us on there. This.
Oh boy. I remember somebody compared us to Ministry and Wumpscut, like someone who did a review on Facebook. So,
Oh, cool! I didn't even know about a Facebook review. I don't think I ever even saw
or
that.
maybe it wasn't Facebook. I guess what the hell was the thing before Facebook?
MySpace.
MySpace? Yeah,
MySpace.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, we all miss MySpace. That was a great website for especially for networking and music and like you have YouTube and you have Facebook now, but it's just not the same.
Yeah, MySpace was. I went back and did like a deep dive with MySpace using like the Wayback Machine, and I was trying to get old photos. I'm gonna just mention a band. Tom is not really a fan of, but it was people that we knew going to high school, and I really liked their music. They were called Leo's Operation.
Hmm.
They had 5 albums from about '94 to about 2004. I make a cameo on one of them. I play
Yeah.
tenor sax solo. and it is terrible, but we're going to pretend it's ironically terrible.
Okay.
Like it is, like it was an attempt at like a romantic kind of. They wanted like super sexy romantic ballad saxophone, and I put it on the end of this song, and it took me 2 hours blowing my brains out because I could barely play this thing. And they, at one point they're like, "Are you okay? Like, are you sick? We can do this another day." And it's like, "No, no, this is normal." Um,
That's
and
what happens when you play saxophone.
I'm sorry.
That's what happens when you play saxophone.
I played that thing at one other thing, another project that was kind of related to school. It was called Velcro Zombies Meet the Toxic Avenger. We played.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was a classic. That was a one time only band.
It was that was the thing. We actually played one more time.
Did you? I didn't. I thought it was just like a made up thing for the prom or whatever, post prom.
It was a Christmas dance, I think. I could be wrong about that. It was either prom or Christmas dance.
I think it was the prom because it was the thing that they did, and it was like, to prevent people from going out and partying or whatever after they had us in.
Okay.
They had us locked in the school, and we had to stay there all night.
Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm just thinking of something else.
Lots of stuff happened there anyway, even though they locked us in the school because people just went outside or whatever. I mean, but they think they did something. I don't know.
Oh shit! I have to bring this up
Yeah.
because it relates to an earlier question about like using different shit to play guitar with. I used the ray gun. We did
Yeah.
cover. We did a cover of Schizophrenia by Sonic Youth.
Okay.
So it was me, a kid named John Dowling, who was also in Leo's Operation, and a genius kid named Brian Rennie on drums.
Oh yeah, Brian was interesting.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to him, I don't know, but
he was living in New York. He had a child.
Oh, okay.
Nathan was telling me I haven't seen him in 15 years. The last time I seen him was when Nathan Kukulski, really good friend of mine, we went to a Wesley Willis show at the Rex Theater. RIP Rex Theater. Feel terrible about that.
Oh, did that close?
Yeah.
Was that because of COVID?
Yeah, I guess people.
I know Howler's Coyote Cafe closed. That was a big one.
I heard about that. I don't.
These are venues in Pittsburgh, by the way, everyone. So.
Yeah, Rex Theater was a theater had been around over 100 years. It was a vaudeville theater, and we saw Wesley Willis and a friend of Nathan's called Girl Talk, who went on to open for Beck and play like festivals in Europe.
Yeah, he got huge.
Yeah, that kid, and you would think, dude with a laptop, how fun can that be? But that kid put so much into his performances. Like,
yeah, but I think the secret with that is he kind of like mashed up like popular songs.
He did. It was like pop songs from 60s and 70s mixed with alternative and noise music mixed with rap music. So he had enough of of his own identity to kind of stick out, but he's a really cool guy. And I had a lot of fun. I mean, Wesley Willis was great too. That was like 6 months before he died. I have a T-shirt. I think it's in the basement. I don't have it with me, unfortunately.
By the way, speaking of Girl Talk, I just came across, I don't know if you've heard of this guy. I hadn't heard of him. Like, I think I've seen his name around, but there was a guy that I just came across on YouTube, and he's apparently kind of he's actually like a comedian, but he does these mashups of popular songs, and his name is Neil Chicharega. And he did a combination of Roller Coaster of Love and Closer. We called it Roller Closer. If you've never heard this, look this up because it's amazing. It goes together they just fit together like a glove. It's hilarious.
I think I've had it recommended to me. I'll have to look it up because by name it doesn't ring a bell, but I think I have seen that mashup before.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we went on a tangent there.
Yeah,
I derailed it.
that's cool though. That's interesting. Um,
Oh shit! I'm sorry. I forgot why I brought the whole thing up in the first place. I got pulled into the principal's office because I used a ray gun on my guitar,
oh, that's
and
cool. Yeah.
this was after Columbine, and I guess he claims he got a complaint, and I had to give up my ray gun. I thought I was going to get in a lot more trouble because there was a cop there, and I was just like,
Oh yeah.
holy shit, this was not planned. And it's like any idiot can tell this is not a real gun.
Yeah.
There was no political
No,
statement
it had like,
being
flashing lights and crap like that.
right, and I wasn't trying to simulate violence. I wasn't trying to make a point about violence in schools. I literally just wanted to put the fucking speaker in front of my guitar to make a noise,
All right.
and I had to give him my gun. I, I bought another gun for $1, like that's like pocket size, but it wasn't nearly as cool looking.
Yeah. Oh, that was crazy. Anyway, but so I was thinking about. So we were talking about that Club Angel show, and then we were talking also about the shows we did at the Odyssey and how there were a lot of young people. Well, what I remember about the Club Angel show, and of course there was the guy that we think his name is Stan that played drums in that show, but
In a werewolf mask.
right. But what I remember about that show was that we got there, and I didn't even remember the emo bands. What I did remember was that it was like really young kids were there and their parents. And I got there and I was like, oh shit. I was like, we can't play these songs. Like, I had to cut one of the songs because we were gonna do Die Cop Die. I took it off the set list because I can't play Die Cop Die in front of like a bunch of 13-year-olds and their parents.
Yeah, I remember having this discussion like outside the club. Now that you bring it up, and
Yeah,
there was super uncomfortable. You were like, we can't play these songs, like, and so you probably made the right call with that one.
yeah. It just the hunch I had.
Yeah, read the room.
The other things we played were bad enough, but I also seem to remember, like, this just came to me a little while ago before we started this, that I think I changed the lyrics of some songs too. I think I may have edited some F-bomb out.
Yeah, what I know we played the whole fucking world is going to explode.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that was probably one. Yeah, it was just. I mean, you said Club Angels, and that's not necessarily religious, but once we got there, I think there were like decorations that kind of gave a Christian vibe off. So it's like, oh, this doesn't fit.
Yeah, I didn't. Other than that, there's very little I remember about that show. I can't figure out what date it was, and I don't remember who else we played with. I don't even really remember how we ended up playing. Well, I think we got the gig because you called and got us in, but they just kind of put us in randomly with other people.
Yeah, I remember Joel was with us, friend from high school, and I that was your friend played drums. That was that was my drum set, which I got for Christmas in like 2004, and it sat in the basement up until 2 years ago, and I started playing it again.
Yeah. So I actually had a question about that, so maybe I'll just pivot on to that. When did you start playing the drums, and how is that coming along, and what do you like about playing drums?
Well, I first started playing drums in 2005, and all I remember, I was like, I want to be in a metal band, so everything was double bass, and I got tired of it really quickly because all I was focusing on is making my feet go as fast as they could. I wasn't learning anything else. I wasn't learning the proper way to play drums or make grooves or anything. So that was a big reason why they sat in the basement for over a decade. Um, but now it actually was like I was trying to find a way to be physical, and believe it or not, it was like a health thing. I really like a band called Mastodon. Um, I'm not the biggest fan. I'm not as big a fan now as I was maybe like 5, 10 years ago, but I still like them. And their drummer, they were talking about. I was getting self conscious about my weight, and but I was having a hard time finding a exercise routine, and
Uh-huh.
I found out about like this guy was burning like 800 or 900 calories a show, and I was like, I could probably enjoy drums. Like it's
Yeah.
something I can do where I can move my body and not hate it. So that was the impetus in getting back into it. Now I'm not very good. Like I probably it probably won't be very good for years, but
Mhm.
I can I can be good enough at least. I can be good enough to make like short recordings and stuff. So I actually bought some microphones recently. One specifically for bass drum, and I think what you have the Marshall. What was the MXL microphone? Uh,
MXL. Oh yeah. No.
yeah, that's the microphone I ended up buying. Like I went on YouTube.
990.
Yeah, it was what was it, the 90s?
990.
Yeah, 990. That's the same one I bought for like $60.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching videos of people on YouTube, and you can mic a drum set with two mics and have it sound good
Really?
as long as you know where to place them. Um, I mean, so it's you're using that one to pick up most of the drum set, and there's another mic specifically for the kick drum. Uh, and I mean, the videos I've seen that like they have anywhere from 1 to 5 microphones. So it's just like I wanted to be able to like capture real drums in a room and see what I could add to that, like combine that with maybe program drums um, to give them like some more life, or just once I become good enough, I'll just do what Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr. does and just play drums on my own records.
Yeah, why not? Well, Jade, who was here in the chat, she got into drums, I think, just recently within the last couple of years, and
Cool.
she bought one of those. I think initially she had like a maybe less expensive, like electronic drum kit, and then she upgraded to like a better like a Yamaha with the mesh. You know,
Okay, I have thought about an electronic drum kit.
I think if I were gonna do drums, I'd probably go electronic just because it's easier to deal with, and it doesn't make as much noise either. But
Well, yeah, so I take care of my grandmother and I live with
uh,
her. And fortunately, she's not super bothered by the drums because her
wow,
her
grandma,
ears are pretty blown
grandma
out.
doesn't mind the drums.
I mean, what did she say? I'm learning how to do rim like I'm learning how to do rim shots right now for like accents, and she's like, "You were going crazy down there," and I felt kind of bad. So I just choose times when she's not watching TV. Like
Okay,
she doesn't seem to mind as long as it's not.
and how old is grandma?
She's 90.
90. Okay, she still
Uh,
has pretty good hearing.
no, that's
Maybe
the
working in your favor then.
well, right. That's what I was getting at.
Gary is saying no mics.
Hmm.
Is there a problem with the audio? Can anyone confirm? I guess if you can't hear me, then
Are you able to hear me?
I'm able to hear you. As far as I know, everything should be working well. If there's a problem, let me know. I don't know if I don't know if he was just talking about what we were talking about or so.
Oh, right.
Uh, oh, sound is good. Okay. You had
Thank
me
you.
you had me nervous for a second. But anyway, so now, do you have any other hobbies or creative activities that you do these days? I know you used to do some art, painting, and drawing and things like that. Do you still do that?
Um, uh, it's unfortunately it hasn't really turned into much the last few years. I have made like an attempt to kind of practice and kind of get the basic shapes, kind of get construction, and
Uh-huh.
at a certain point it always kind of peters out. Like I did do some paintings for school that turned out well, but I needed it. I needed it for a class, so that's actually something that I have problems with, and that's maybe why I need to start like looking for more collaborators. Is when I am the only one doing the work, like
Uh-huh.
when I can do anything I want, I can make any decision I want. It's completely paralyzing. It's like I've done some songs with a mutual friend of ours, John Allen Gibble, who he's a one of the coolest people I know. He was a filmmaker. He's had his own yoga studio. He's like into massage therapy,
Hmm.
and he's a huge film buff, huge art buff. And we've done some cover songs. We did 2000 Light Years from Home by the Rolling Stones, and we did Dog Eat Dog by Adam and the Ants. And
Uh-huh.
in both cases, I was able to work with. I was able to make recordings and kind of work and write new parts for those songs. But the reason I was able to do it was because I had a very limited context. I had a limited amount of time. Uh, and when you're down to time and there's no flexibility, that's when you make hard decisions.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, I've had difficulty making hard decisions with my own art. So I have to either get guidance from outside people, either working together, or I have to kind of become my own boss and create projects. Like practicing doesn't seem to be enough. It's I what I think I'm going to start doing is this is the project I want to fulfill. What
Hmm.
do I need to do to make this happen? And work within that context. As I maybe give myself a time limit, maybe set limits on what kind of media I could use, or say with music, maybe set limits on tracks, maybe guitar tracks or whatever. Um, Unfortunately, I have proven time and time again that I don't get anything done when I can do anything. I
Well, I should mention to you, and that's a problem I think for a lot of people. And of course, limitations are good, and that they'll sometimes help to focus you. But I should mention that where a lot of these fine folks, pretty much all of the fine folks that are here today are from. We have a little bit of a community on Facebook called Create, Record, Release, which is run by Pete Johns, who is here in the chat. And the whole thing is you just post what you're doing as you're doing it. You let people know what you're up to. When you release a project, you let them know, and then people can give feedback on it and can help you to grow as a musician. So of course, I'd invite everybody to join that, but I would also invite you to join that because I think it's a great community for exactly that reason.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about it. When you mentioned the community, you know, I, um, I've watched a lot of your streams, and I see people turn up. I see people give you feedback
Yeah.
or encouragement, and it's like, wow, that's pretty cool.
It's
So,
awesome. And I'm talking with people like most of these people, Jade's in Australia, Gary is in Canada.
wow,
Russ, who was here earlier, is from the UK. So I'm talking to people from all over the world. It's amazing. and we're sharing our music and giving feedback. It's really great. And we're all different styles. Not everybody does one style. We have people that do metal. We have people that do electronica. We have people that do singer songwriter. It's everything. So, and Gary Hubbs just says would welcome you in, Jeremiah. So,
Oh, thank you very much. It would be something that I would like to do. I actually have to reactivate my Facebook account. I think I've had it deactivated for something like a year and a half.
oh,
I mean, not for anything bad. It was literally just to stop me from being on it.
okay.
Um, although I could just
It can be addictive.
probably. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. I mean, it can become addictive sometimes, but
Yeah, it wasn't so much even the being addictive, although it was that. It was just the negativity of it, like,
yeah.
um, and but I could see maybe creating like an account specifically for that, specifically to talk to people working with music and for sharing whatever I want to work on.
Yeah, and it's an extremely positive community. I can almost say I can't recall a negative experience that I've had or that I've seen anyone else have. So that's what's really good about it. It's just very affirming.
Yeah, if there's that actually leads into something like I wanted to just bring up briefly. If
Uh-huh.
that was one thing that I always felt like that I didn't get enough of, like enough playing with other people, like beyond you and a couple other projects. I mean, I did have bands in high school. Oh yeah, thank you. I Voivod's one of my favorite groups. Dimension Hattress and
Well,
Nothing Face. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Jade's a big Mr. Bungle fan too, Mike Patton.
Oh yeah,
I knew you were really in, or I don't know if you still are, but
I do. I really like Disco Volante and California a lot. I need to listen to the first one more often, but yeah, Mike Patton's great. Mr. Bungle's great. Um, I've actually had a lot of. I'm actually in a rut, like as far as what I'm listening to, because I went to some concerts and like after that it was weird. It was like all of a sudden I was like I don't want to listen to anything else. I've been listening to more podcasts than anything.
mhm,
So maybe this would be maybe that's another thing, just a good opportunity to kind of work with other people.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, one of the best musicians I ever played with, and it was really cool. He reached out to me, and this is kind of where some of this, where you're seeing like, oh my god, like these people are real musicians. Is there's a kid named Matt Novak. I was in a band with him. I was 13 or 14 when I joined. I think I was 13, and we were called Charlie Bucket, and we played high school parties for I don't know, a few months.
Uh-huh.
I don't think we played more than about 5 or 6. But I always remember Matt Novak. This kid was just a brilliant guitar player, and he came into my work maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was just like it was so nice to see him. And he said, "Why don't you come play with us?" And this is a kid that I had like as much as I liked him, I had been a source of like trouble in that band because I was the kid that could never like, and nothing was ever good enough. I could never accept anything. Like it was this like awful perfectionism. And
Mhm.
um, here was a kid who was basically like, that shit didn't matter. Like I only remember the good stuff. And he invited me to come play with him and some friends in a basement. And I did that on and off for about a year and a half. There were things that outside of with the other member of the band that kind of prevented that from going on. But Matt, like, he only got better as a guitar player. Like, he played in church for like 4 years with like bluegrass dudes,
Uh-huh.
and that guy can shred. But he's got tons of feeling, tons of creativity. He's just a really quirky guy, and a really sweet guy. You can find some of his stuff on YouTube. Uh, maybe after this, after we do this interview, I know you're gonna put this up, but maybe we can post links to a few of the people we've talked about.
Oh yeah, that would be cool. Any links that you have, just send to me. Because what happens is after the live stream's over, then it'll kind of go into YouTube limbo for about 12 hours, and then it reappears as a regular video. So
Oh,
in that
okay.
interim period, I'll be able to put any links in the description.
But he was great. The drummer was great. The bass player was great. And I stood there for like 2 hours, like without even like touching my guitar because I was like shaking so hard. But it was really important for me to be in a room with musicians. And like eventually I started to kind of integrate more.
Uh-huh.
Um, and, uh, but all of a sudden, like basically anytime you think you're hot shit, go play with some other people and you get proven wrong really fast.
Yeah. Well, it's always different, different people and different levels of experience and talent. So yeah, that's cool.
But for years and years, I didn't do it. And it was because I had a fragile sense of self. Like if
Mhm.
other people were better than me, then, what
And a
are,
lot of us do.
yeah. And maybe that's something I had to kind of learn, but I wish I didn't have to learn it when I was 35.
Yeah. Well, you're never too old to learn new things, that's for sure.
No, I guess not.
All right. Well, I have one final question for you before we wrap this up. By the way, Gary had to peace out, so thanks for stopping by, Gary. He's probably gone already. But at any rate, so my final question for you is going to be: at the end of the day, how do you want to be remembered? Like when we're all gone and future anthropologists uncover the record of the existence of Jeremiah Mangosh, what would you want them to learn about you?
Um, I, in a way, I hope it's not for necessarily for something musical. Like, hopefully, like, I don't know, like, hopefully there's some kind of contribution I can make to the world. I don't know. Maybe there's going to be wells, like water wells that have something to do with me. Like you contributed to this. People were able to get water because of you, or something like that. Like I don't think I could take the idea of being remembered. It would be great, like if I did something that was that good that it was worth it. But like I remember Ian MacKaye from Minor Threat and Fugazi.
Hmm.
He when he put together Discord Records, which is one of the is like the important punk label of for the DC scene. Oh, hardcore oxygen. That's a new one. Yeah, I'll
We'll have
give
to
them
check
a
that
look.
out, Jeremiah.
I need something new to listen to, but I
Well, there
remember
you go.
Ian MacKaye was just like, look, no one's going to care about anything we've done in 200 years. But for him, that was like freedom. He's like, it was just like, let's put out exactly what we want to put out and not care if it's going to be relevant. And I mean, of course, it did end up being relevant. And if we're still writing about music history, he is going to be remembered because he was that, Fugazi and Minor Threat were that important, and his label were that important. Was that important. But the point is, it's like I don't even want to think about that. When
Yeah,
I'm dead, like hopefully I accomplished something that someone will care about. But
that's the most important thing, I think.
I've really kind of gone the other way with it. I was just like, especially when you something like something like COVID just slam dunking the music scene, like the live scene and stuff. At one point, I genuinely wanted to be in a popular band. I genuinely wanted to be known for music, and like it's just kind of like shedding layers at this point. Not like you keep kind of like going, well, that's not going to happen, so that's not important. You keep getting to the point where it's like, well, can you still make music? Can you still make art if you are the only audience? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I know we're talking about actually having a collective that listens to each other and encourages each other. But if all that shit went away, like, would I still do this? Do I still want to do this? And like, so it has to be yes or no. Like, and somehow I keep coming back to this guitar. I started playing when I was 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And you when did you start playing keyboard or organ?
4,
Exactly.
4 or
And
5.
you're still doing it. So it's still meaningful to you.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Pete. I got it, and I appreciate it. I mean, it sounds like a negative thing, but I guess you have at a certain point you have to be completely selfish. Uh,
exactly. Yeah.
David Bowie said something along the lines of, "I want to make music that is so uncompromised that I no longer have an audience." He's like, "I'm not there yet, but maybe one day I will be."
Well, and of course, the thing I remember about Bowie was him going out with that amazing album to end his career.
Yeah,
What a thing to who does that's only David Bowie can do that.
yeah, Black Star. I should listen to that again. But that also brings up something, and another man who passed away, of course, Lemmy Kilmister, a few years
Oh
ago,
yeah.
and um, Lemmy did Lemmy do like I'm, I guess what I'm about to say is something to do with like you want to experiment, you want to do you hopefully want to make something you hopefully want to make something that's going to be distinctive, but ultimately, like, do you really want to see ACDC make a reggae album? Like, do you want to see ACDC do jazz standards? I Maybe they could do it, and maybe it would be like funny
Actually,
for
I kind of would be interested to hear.
but it's one of those things. I want to hear it, but would I put that on like next time, or would I put on
You'd listen to it once as a novelty and
ex-
forget about it.
exactly?
Yep.
And they know that. So it's cool to see them be, in their 60s and 70s and do something that people still like. Like, yeah, I know. It's
Laps on
it's really
stage.
sad.
Huh.
It's really sad. I remember seeing a video. It wasn't the last show, but it was about 3 months before, where Lemmy, I think he got about 2 or 3 songs in. And he's just like, "I want to play for you, but I can't," and he had
Oh.
to just walk off. It was awful, and it was awful to see. But um,
But
and I
with a guy like that, that's probably how
yeah,
he envisioned going out. Doing it, just going hard until the end.
yeah, he lived the rock and roll lifestyle. Like, how how can he be disappointed? Like, he got everything he ever wanted.
Yeah.
Uh, um, I actually, speaking of that, I remember I actually just read a quote today, and I do like film a lot. And David Lynch talking to Steven Spielberg, saying, "Man, you're lucky. You make something. You make exactly what you want to make, but somehow millions of other people want that too." And like, it wasn't like a diss on Spielberg. It was just, David Lynch is one of my favorite directors, but he's an acquired taste, and he knows that. And
Hmm.
so, but he makes this. I guess the point was, him and Spielberg were both making exactly what they wanted. It would just happen to be one was a lot easier to get, but to get people's attention. But you can't. Ultimately, you can't worry about that, because you'll sabotage yourself.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
All right. Well, I thank you so much for this was a great chat. This was a great first interview for the Thomas Christ channel, I think. I thank everybody that was here. It's really fantastic. And I'm going to put a link, I think, in the description. I know we're going to maybe put some links in, but I'm going to put a link to the Create, Record, Release Facebook group. So Jeremiah, if you want to join, or anybody else that wants to join, feel free to. Of course, you'd be welcomed with open arms. So we're gonna bring this to a close. But as we go out, I'm gonna play some music from our actually the last song of our last show. So
Cool.
It's gonna be "Antisocial" from it. That was on. I actually have the dates written down. That was on 6/28/09. So hopefully, Jeremiah and I will be able to work together again at some point, and maybe we'll have live music again once this COVID thing passes. And so, we'll see what the future brings. But thank you so much, and we'll chat after this stream's over. So
Yeah, I had a great time, Tom. Thank you for setting this up.
yeah. Thanks for being here, for providing us with such amazing insights and information. All right. So take care, everybody. And we're going to go out with some Antisocial from the Shadow Lounge, 6/28/09.
Go.